Hello petals, my name is Anais. I am a womb witch, a Rahani energy teacher, and a plant alchemist. Under Unfurling Alchemy, I guide women in reconnecting with their power, awakening their essence, and step into sovereignty. In these episodes, I am going to approach topics around womb mysteries, energy healing, and cyclic living. Hello petals! Today I wanted to share something that has been quite alive with me recently and something that I have really been noticing so very clearly in so many of my clients' journeys. And so actually this started as a little voice note that I dropped in my WhatsApp group chat with my clients because I know that so many of them aren't on Instagram or aren't like super active on Instagram. And so when I'm having those real juicy moments of thoughts and reflections, I like to have them land somewhere where I know we can have a conversation about it. And so as I was doing that, I thought, maybe this also wants to become a podcast episode. So here we are. So this theme that has been so loud recently has been the fact that when we make big moves in lives, when we make big, bold decisions, not everybody in our life is going to understand us, and that's okay. In fact, the quicker we can make peace with the fact that not everybody is going to understand when we are making life-changing decisions, the easier the whole process becomes. Because big life changes, they rarely happen quietly, and they often look like something quite visible actually from the outside. It may be something like leaving a job, leaving a career, leaving a relationship, moving somewhere new, going traveling, or letting go of something that used to feel like a core part of you, of who you are, part of your identity, a habit, a way of living, a way of presenting yourself in the world. And sometimes we are not only changing our circumstances, but we are really also completely updating the identity that people around us have come to associate us with. And that can feel super destabilizing for people around us. And yeah, very often when people see on this outside scale this sudden decision, this actually has been moving inside us for a very long time. Within our internal landscape, there may have been a restlessness, a pull, a quiet sense of something that needs to shift. And that feeling may have been present for days, for weeks, for months, sometimes even years. But very often this process unfurls internally first. They happen within our own reflections, in the moments where something inside us keeps whispering or being quite loud, saying that the life that we are living no longer fits in the same way and that something has to change. And many times we don't speak about those processes out loud as they are unfolding, while they are unfolding. We sit with it. We explore it quietly. We turn it around inside ourselves again and again and again. So by the time that we are finally ready to make this decision, by the time we are finally ready to say it out loud, for us it may feel like this natural next step in a process, in such a natural process that has already been unfolding for a very long time. But for the people around us, it can feel sudden. It can feel unexpected or even confusing because they only see this moment of change. They didn't witness the long internal journey that brought us there. And that difference in perspective is often where the misunderstandings begin. Now, there are many different reasons why people struggle when we change. And I don't want to go too deep in all of those different layers, but there are a couple of pieces here that I wanted to bring forward for us to acknowledge and to just be in presence with. Sometimes people benefit from us staying small. Consciously or unconsciously, they benefit from the version of us that is overgiven. The version of us that has no strong boundaries. The version of us that fits comfortably within a dynamic that works for them, that works in their benefit. So then when we begin to grow, when we grow out of it, when we set boundaries, when we change the way we show up, it can disturb those dynamics. And disruption often creates resistance. And I just wanted to put this here as something to really be acknowledged as we are going through those flavors of changes, as we are going through those big expansions, to keep an eye on our surrounding, to keep our eye on the people that are like around us, and really do this checking back in with ourselves if we are met with resistance. Just having this awareness of some of the layers of that could be revealed here, or like some of the dynamics that may come up as you are going through this process. Another layer that I wanted to mention today is that when someone sees you changing, it can activate something inside of them. Sometimes it activates fear, because you changing actually reminds them that change is possible. Sometimes it activates discomfort because your courage highlights the places where they may feel completely stuck. Sometimes it activates uncertainty, because if you step outside of the expected path, suddenly the map that they thought existed so rigidly begins to look a lot less clear. And when people feel uncertain and uncomfortable, they often try to bring things back to what felt familiar. They're trying to bring things back into the comfort zone. And so back to what feels safe, which often means encouraging you to return to what you used to be. Again, not necessarily because they want to control you, but because your change creates movement in a system that used to feel stable. And yes, of course, we also need to keep an eye out for just, toxic dynamics and, other elements that are playing out with people. But honestly, I truly, truly, honestly believe that for the majority of people, it actually comes from a place of love. Their resistance comes from a place of love, from a place of care, from a place of concern. Because the truth is that the other people cannot see what you see. And the more visionary you are, the bigger the move you're making, the less they can see you. Because they cannot feel that inner compass that is guiding you. They cannot hear the quiet whispers inside of you that say something needs to change. Or sometimes the very loud voices. Whatever language you want to give that to, intuition, God, spirit, life, your inner knowing, they cannot feel that way you do. So from the outside, your choices may look crazy. They may look irrational, sudden, risky, confusing. And that is something we have to honor. Because people don't need to understand our path in order for it to be right for us. And people don't need to understand our path to still meet us with love and with support. And this is where sovereignty becomes important. Because sovereignty is not about convincing everyone around you that your decision makes sense. It is about trusting that inner knowing, even when others cannot see the vision yet. And sometimes that trust within our inner knowing, within our inner vision is super strong. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes we are wobbly within this process. And this is when we are in those wobbles where we can make the mistake of overly relying on other people's opinion, on seeking that external validation that we may not receive because they are not able to see the vision that we are holding. So this is often where with my client I bring in the metaphor around the acorn and the oak tree. Because when we are making these big life changes, these big decisions, we are often then somewhere in an early stage of growth, at least within that specific part of our life. So imagine this acorn. Everything that the oak tree will one day become already lives within the blueprint of this acorn. But from the outside, it only looks like a small seed. And then something begins to change. Something begins to push. Something inside wants to grow and grow and grow and can no longer be contained until the shell begins to break. That moment of rupture is messy, it is ugly, it is uncomfortable, it is uncertain. But this acorn breaks open, cracks open. And a small shoot begins to push through the earth and into the light. And at that stage between like this little shoot and sapling, we are so incredibly vulnerable. We are so incredibly susceptible through our environment and through the elements that we have around us. That our environment in those stages has such a huge influence on whether we continue to grow or not. Because we are at that stage so much more susceptible to the weather, to the wind, to a dog walking on us, to all of those different elements that can come and throw us off. And that early stage of growth is often where we find ourselves, after having made those big decisions. And we are still growing our roots, we are still finding our footing, we're still building that stability, which means that we are naturally so much more susceptible to that external environment. And for us as humans, that may look like the opinion of others, the energy around us. And this is where something really important happens when we are in that vulnerable stage. In that part of that seeking external validation, we want reassurance. We want someone to say, yes, this makes sense. Yes, you are doing the right thing. Yes, this will work out. Because inside we may feel a little bit shaky because we have expanded so much outside of what was familiar. We are so far outside of our comfort zone, and that is so very human. But this is also the moment where we need to be very discerning about where we seek that reassurance from. Because not everybody can hold that vision that we're carrying, and not everybody needs to. For example, if you decide to leave your job to become self-employed, it may not be the most helpful insight for you to go to your bestie who absolutely loves her career and is flourishing in her 9-to-5 for business advice. She can love you deeply, she can support you emotionally, but she may simply not understand the world that you are stepping into, and that is okay. It just means that maybe right now she is not the perfect person, the right person for this particular conversation. The more unconventional our choices are, the fewer people will immediately understand them. And that is simply part of the path. But the people who truly love you do not need to fully understand you or to understand your why in order to support you. They can still love you. They can still bring care. They can still walk alongside you, even if they can't see the full picture yet. And over time, this beautiful thing happens as we keep growing, our roots keep deepening, our branches keep stretching out, and we slowly move from this fragile little sapling into something that is bigger. We move from the shoot into the sapling, and then from the sapling into the almighty oak. And so when we reach that stage, the storms don't disappear. Life will always bring some storms, but what will change will be how rooted we are and how much those external forces affect us or not. And what once felt like it could just knock us over, now simply moves through our branches, simply move like along us. And so if you are currently in that stage of growth where you are making big changes, if you are stepping into something new and people around you do not fully understand, I just want to remind you that this is part of the process. You are not doing something wrong. You are simply growing. And growth is rarely comfortable and rarely comfortable as well for the environment around us. But the path that you are walking does not need everyone's approval in order to be valid. Actually, it needs nobody's approval in order to be valid. Sometimes it only needs our own quiet inner knowing and the courage to keep walking that path. Thank you very much for listening today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode.